Welcome everybody to another edition of the Hurry Up. I'm your host, Adam, the Don Juan of Sports. Here we go. It's about time. What are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about that bounty that the New Orleans Saints have. We're going to talk a little bit about March Madness and what it means to the greater good. And we're going to talk about the New York Knicks and what it means to be a Knicks fan right now, as well as touch on a little spring baseball. Believe it or not, it is baseball season. So let's go. Let's start with the bounty first. We'll do football. Football is over, but it's heating up because of the off season. Now, this is the best time in football because the free agency frenzy. Where's Peyton Manning gonna go? Where's Drew Brees gonna go? Who's staying where? Who's doing what? This is the time you build a team. It's the most exciting time of year outside of the games. These next few months are littered with free agency, draft, OTAs, you name it. It's happening. Let's get through it. Now, of course, there's a few names going out there where Peyton Manning is going to go. Next week is the deadline. We'll find out where Peyton Manning goes, what team he's going to do, and if the Colts decide, you know what, we want to keep this guy. Transitioning into the draft, a lot of people are talking about the draft and a guy named Andrew Luck. If Andrew Luck's not in the first round, we're talking about RG3. But to me, there's no comparison between the two guys. They're two different players. You've got to let them play out. It's kind of funny because it's kind of exciting. Like back in the day when Peyton Manning versus Ryan Leaf, which one do you take? Obviously, we know the story about Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. For those who don't, Ryan Leaf ended up being a bust, and while Peyton Manning is still playing, hopefully still playing this coming season. So you can't really tell about a guy until he actually plays. Look at Cam Newton. Everybody doubted that he could throw. He's still the overall best quarterback, and look what he did. He just threw. He broke the rookie record and threw for almost over 4,000 yards. So you can't really tell with these guys. What you can tell is, and even though the combine did happen last weekend and just concluded at the beginning of this week, the combine doesn't tell you anything. It's shorts and t-shirts. It's basically, the combine is for guys who don't get looked at during the year, who can play, show, hey, listen, now you're going to take a look at me. Now you raise the stats. You look at a guy like Michael Mullen. Many of you don't know who he is. Was a small town prospect, came to the combine, tore up the combine, never did anything in the NFL. Then you got a guy like Jerry Rice who doesn't have a great 40 time. What does Jerry Rice do? It just goes to show that the combine doesn't mean you're a player. It does make a lot of money for some guys, but it doesn't mean you're a player. It made a lot of money for a guy named Darius Hayward-Bay. Darius Hayward-Bay ran one of the fastest 40 times in his draft, and he ended up being a top 10 pick with Michael Crabtree. Michael Crabtree and Darius Hayward-Bay have not produced to the level of a man named Akeem Nicks. Now, I'm not trying to compare the three. I'm just saying Akeem Nicks ran a 4.5. These other two guys ran 4.4 and better, and were picked in the top 10, and the production level is better for Akeem Nicks. That's all I'm saying. The draft, you can't always predict. Look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady, 6th-round pick, Hall of Famer. It doesn't really matter. John Randall, undrafted free agent. The list goes on and on. The point is, don't invest in draft stock. Invest in game tape. Look at what a guy's done in his career. That'll make you understand who he is. Moving on to this bounty. The NFL is going down to the Saints. If you haven't noticed, haven't heard, there's a bounty on the Saints. They're investigating it, meaning a bounty for players trying to injure other players. Guess what? This is the NFL. This has been happening since the Deacon Jones era. Okay, and earlier, even before that, in the inception of football, people have been doing it. Now, do many teams do this? I'm not saying they do or don't. What I'm saying is, look at it like this. If you're in your DB meeting room and they say the first guy to 5 interceptions this year gets $100 bonus. The first guy, and or you commit a penalty and you put money in the pot. Whatever happens, it usually happens. Now, do people make bounties of $10,000? I don't know, but I do know that they do play for incentives. Example being penalties. Coaches sometimes imply, hey, if we don't get any penalties this year, or we do get penalties like a roughing the passer penalty or personal foul penalty, or whatever penalty it is on defense, we're going to put $5 in the pot for that man who did it. And at the end of the day, end of the season, they give it to a charity. Now, if they had given this money to charity, we might not know about this. If the coaches are involved, this could be bad. It's going to look bad on the Saints, but this is the NFL. This is usually what happens. It's a ruthless game, and sometimes you want to keep these things in-house. But that's one of the trending topics going on today. How do I feel about it? It's football. You know what? Sometimes as a fan, you think, hey, man, let's take this guy out of the game. You want to do it cleanly in the rules of the game, get him out of there. You know what I mean? You don't want to pull like a Tanya Harding and hit somebody with a bet or be a dirty player. You want to do it in the ramification of the game. If you happen to knock somebody out, you happen to knock somebody out. Look at 2010 season or the 2010 season for the Giants. They knocked out 6 quarterbacks. You know, they won most of the games. They knocked the quarterbacks out. They didn't mean to knock quarterbacks out, but they were just going relentlessly to the quarterback. That's why people invest money in the quarterbacks. That's why people invest money in backups in case this happens. It's a ruthless game. You don't want to see that. But if there is a bounty going on, there's no place for it in the NFL, but I can't say it doesn't happen. Moving on to the next thing, we're going to hit on a little bit March Madness. It is March Madness. A lot of the games are going to go on. This is the Cinderella stories. This is what these playoffs are about. For the next couple weeks, teams are going to be playing for the spot of the Final Four and the spot of the national championships. It's probably the most watched playoffs outside of the Major League playoffs and the NFL playoffs. The only thing I can compare to that is the NFL playoffs, because when you lose, you're out, or you're out. There's no really. There is a losers bracket for the third and fourth place team. See who ends up third and who ends up fourth. But outside of that, you're done. You go home. Great season. You made it to the tournament. Bye-bye. See you later. On to the next recruiting class. That's what makes it so engaging. It also makes it engaging because, if a team like, let's say, Michigan doesn't bring their A game against a college like Chattanooga happens to upset them, that's why you play the games. That's why this is so exciting. So look for it. March Madness will be a lot of fun. Get your office pool, your brackets ready, because that's what everyone's going to do. Bracketology. We're not going to break it down, but we're going to try to break down some games as they go through, so check that out. Last thing, the New York Knicks are relevant again in the tri-state area. If you're a Knicks fan, you got to love basketball right now. Why? Because you're bringing it back to I'm not saying to the old Knick days, but to the days of when you could respect the basketball team. It's not like last year where they made the playoffs and you were happy to do that. No, this is a chance for them to do well. They got a little bit of swagger to them. Baron Davis is saying, watch out for this team. That's what you want. A little bit of a bravado. A little bit of, you're not going to push us around anymore. You want the New York attitude. That's what you want with the Knicks. You're getting that. Enjoy it. Enjoy the insanity. They have a big game coming up this weekend against the Celtics. So it could be a passing of the torch. Look out for that game. Look out for the rest of the year. It should be fun for the New York Knicks. Hop on board. It shouldn't be called Linsanity. It should be called Knicksanity. I'm your host, Don Juan of Sports. Tune in every week for your latest updates and hot topics.